Hi, this is Dr. Whistler from Pfeiffer's Graduate School of Business, and I've invited Dr. Robert Cox, who is the Director of University Counseling and Wellness Center at Pfeiffer University and an Assistant Professor in the Marriage and Family Therapy Program in the Graduate School at Pfeiffer University, to share some of his insights with regard to trauma-impacted organizations, trauma-impacted individuals, and strategies and methodologies we can utilize when we have a trauma-impacted workplace. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Cox.
Oh, you are welcome, Dr. Whistler.
Appreciate
Glad
it.
to help.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to start my first question. Can you tell us a little bit about how trauma impacts people emotionally and physically, both in the moment of trauma and what happens after the trauma has occurred down the road?
Well, there's a lot that goes on up in there, and so I guess the first place to start is really kind of thinking about what is trauma, because when something happens to us, then we might have a response that kind of is problematic, and we might have a response that is not, and it's not the same for every person. So just kind of thinking about a trauma as a reaction, a hurt that comes from an event or a series of events. There's this thing called a little T trauma, and there's this thing called a big T trauma. Big T traumas tend to be more natural disasters, car wrecks, sudden single event kind of things that are pretty devastating, but they're just a one-time event usually. Little T traumas are more baked into the water. They're the environment that we live in. There's kind of a cumulative effect of living in a chaotic or unsafe, invalidating environment.
So if maybe a toxic supervisor or a toxic business culture could be part of the little T trauma that an employee could experience?
It certainly could be. And if you have somebody who grew up in the same sort of environment, then they come to work in an environment that maybe mirrors in some ways where they grew up, then they would tend to have patterns of behavior that could be problematic.
One last question around this topic. There's something called a crisis and there's something called a trauma. And what's the difference between the two?
Well, when I think about it, I think about the crisis as the event.
Okay.
It is the thing. And the trauma is the hurt that comes from that.
Okay.
Then there is the reaction to the hurt. If it's a healing, resilience is a concept around the healing, the overcoming of traumas. But not everybody develops that resiliency in the same way, and they may become unproductive in relation to that. So there's just kind of think about it as kind of a 3-point piece.
Okay.
Crisis, hurt, and then the reaction to it.
Perfect. Thank you.